By the time 2 federal agents stepped into our community rec hall, my front door was still dripping red paint. And the HOA president who swore I was stealing her lake had a death grip on a binder. Folks told me to back down, sign the easement, apologize. Instead, I held up a photo of a concrete post stamped U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and the room went quiet like somebody hit the lights. They thought I was the problem. The marker said otherwise. If they hadn't come for the truth, yet the truth had come for them. I'm Caleb Rourke, 41. Former environmental investigator who learned the hard way that telling the truth can cost you a job. A few fair weather friends and most of your sleep. After a case blew up my life, I bought 14.5 acres of scruffy oaks and cattails around a forgotten puddle called Summit Cove Reserve, put my phone on silent, and promised myself a simple plan. Rebuild a busted cabin, string a fence on the survey line, make coffee before sunrise, and talk to nobody. I didn't choose. Third morning out there, I'm running a diesel auger. It coughs like a pack-a-day habit, and a little parade forms on the gravel. 2 cruisers idling a white Lexus, shining like dental work, about 40 neighbors with phones up, and a woman in a powder blue blazer whose heels hate dirt. Federal agents are already on their way, she says. Like she's asking for cream, you're blocking public access. That's Brenda Halpern, president of Pine Harbor Estates, HOA. Deputy Cole Abbott walks up steady, not unfriendly. Sir, name and documents. I hand him the deed, title, insurance, the survey with my name, neat as a wedding invite. He checks parcel numbers, taps his tablet, nods once. Looks right. Mr. Rourke owns Summit Cove Reserve. The crowd murmurs. Brenda doesn't blink. Officer. That's not the issue, she says for the cameras. For 20 years, our families have used this water. We built a dock, we pay to keep that shoreline clean. He can't fence us out. I keep my voice even, because fire needs oxygen. There's no recorded easement, no right-of-way across this parcel. Historical use isn't ownership. I show Abbott a county satellite overlay with the property lines like a coloring book. He nods again, calls it civil, tells them to take it up in court. People don't like when the law doesn't like them back. Brenda pivots, promises I'll hear from counsel, and leaves a pair of heeled divots in my dirt like signatures. She returns that afternoon with a welcome packet and a fee sheet. Pine Harbor HOA annual registration, $500. I laugh a little, can't help it. I'm not in your HOA, Ms. Halpern. She keeps the smile that says, I'll learn. The lake is managed by our association. Shared resource, shared responsibility. I walk her and the clipboard twins back to the line and point to the rusty T-post marked 6. That side is your world. This side is mine. You're trespassing. Please leave. She records me anyway, like she needs proof I'm real. Truth is, I was rattled, but not lost. Behind her up on the north bank, I'd clocked a concrete pillar 3 feet out of the mud. Sun-bleached, beat to pieces, the kind of thing you'd ignore unless you've been trained to ask why an old thing nobody wants is still here. Next morning, I wipe algae off with my sleeve. The stamp shows up like a bruise. U.S. Fish and Wildlife. Dick's boundary marker 22. I take 3 angles, log a GPS pin, and call the regional USFWS line. Agent Luis Ruiz calls back, calm as a forecast. Marker 22 at Summit Cove. He repeats typing. Transferred to state in the 90s. But the registry shows boundary objects not decommissioned. If there's been construction or shoreline modifications without federal permits, that's a Clean Water Act problem. He says it like weather, Not personal, still going to soak you. The lawsuit lands 2 days later. Pine Harbor Estates v. Rourke. A tidy request for a preliminary injunction to make me drop the fence and grant a permanent easement, all wrapped in phrases like prescriptive easement and public trust doctrine, and politely allergic to the words federal marker. Yeah, that happened. The smear starts too. An email blast about the outsider fencing off our children's future. A neighbor live streaming, "This is what's wrong with America." The kind of chorus that makes decent folks sit down just to stop the noise. I don't sit. I go to the county clerk and make friends with a humming microfiche reader. Down in the small type of an 1891 record. I find it. Riparian rights granted in perpetuity to the owner of the parcel known as Summit Cove Reserve. Perpetuity is a word you don't say unless you're ready to back it up. I was. Then my first ally steps out of the shadow. Naomi Price, accountant, brain-soft voice, former HOA treasurer, meets me 2 towns over, so her car isn't spotted. She lays out copies of bank statements with her finger steady as a metronome. Roughly $40,000 a year, collected about $15,000 spent on trash and insurance, and a string of withdrawals just under $10,000 labeled facility improvements paid to Lakeshore Management Services. I look it up that night. Lakeshore is Brenda's company, not on the HOA site, not in the minutes, not disclosed. A retired survey hand named Gus Ellison invites me into a room full of maps and shows me a photo he took 20 years back of a metal sign someone told him to remove. Federal Refuge Area. He taps my lake with a nicotine finger. We set 17 markers in the 70s. Your 22 is one of them. People pretend history doesn't count if it gets in the way of a barbecue. I ask if he'll testify. He shrugs. Only thing I'm afraid of is running out of coffee. Now for the twist you felt coming. But maybe not this hard. I start scanning satellite images in a grid, rent a drone at dawn, skim tree lines, until a black poly line pops into view. Dips under brush, reappears where erosion chewed at the bank, and runs 2 miles south to a place the map calls Birchgate Resort. Lawns too green for this county, a neat irrigation manifold behind the kitchens. No easements where it crosses a private homestead. No permits tying it to my water. And the resort's parent company. Cedar Ridge Development shares an address with Lakeshore Tours, which is also Brenda's. Yeah, that happened too. I send the footage to Ruiz. An hour later, I'm on with Special Agent Dana Klein at the FBI. If that pipeline is pulling from a federally protected source without permits, and HOA funds are mixed with private enrichment, she says, cool as a surgeon. We've got environmental crimes and fraud. Can you compile everything into one report? Deeds registry, screens, bank pulls, corporate filings, witness statements, parcel overlays. I can, and I do. In the middle of the paperwork, Brenda invites me to a public HOA meeting, mandatory for all affected property owners. She wants a stage. I bring a projector from a thrift store. She does 20 minutes on stewardship and memories, and the outsider with the fence. And when she asks for questions, I put marker 22 on the wall, then the active USFWS registry entry, then a simple Clean Water Act slide, written in words your aunt would understand, not Latin. Old hardware doesn't control modern rights, she says with a teacher's smile. Naomi stands anyway. I asked to audit. I was threatened with a lawsuit and removed. Those withdrawals weren't ours. The room shifts from nods to questions. Deputy Abbott catches my eye at the door and tilts his head. Time to go. I go because living to show the next slide matters more than winning a room on a Tuesday. Retaliation speaks its own bad English. Next morning, my cabin door is sprayed in red. Liar, thief, get out. That night, 3 SUVs park on the county road with high beams in my windows like spotlights. A glossy sight goes up, painting me as a grifter who forged federal documents. My address and number are posted. Calls follow. I install cameras. At 2 a.m., 8 people in masks cut my fence, smash my front window, kick the door, and rush in yelling that I don't belong here. I wedge a steel bar under the back room handle and call 911 loud on speaker so they hear the clock. Sirens climb the crew bolts and one drops a wallet because adrenaline makes you clumsy. Abbott fishes it off my kitchen floor and reads a name. Sitting HOA board member. This just turned into felony, he says. Agent Klein watches my footage over coffee, nods once, and moves faster. Witness tampering will do that. 2 weeks later, Brenda calls an emergency session. Same hall, 7 p.m. Big crowd running hot. She opens with a speech about an outsider fabricating evidence to extort. A gentle community gets polite applause, and then I stand not to argue, just to roll tape. Marker 22, 3 angles. USFWS registry active. County record. No dock permit. Drone clip. Black poly under brush to that irrigation manifold behind Birchgate. Corporate filings. Lakeshore tours and Cedar Ridge development with Brenda's address. Bank summaries. Blocks of $9,900 walking out the door 19 times in 6 months to her companies. Bylaws. The original ones where the board voted, and the edits she pushed through that let the president spend under 10 grand without oversight and remove disruptive members. Then I shut up, because you can't out-talk a picture. Naomi's voice doesn't shake now. I begged for an audit. She paid her family's firm with our dues. Eloise Park, the original president, points with a pen. We used to vote. We used to see numbers. That ended when Brenda rewrote the rules. Somebody near the back says, "Is this true?" and nobody answers fast enough to save her. Brenda pounds the lectern. Slander, she says. Out of context, she says that pipeline is landscaping, she says. And then the back door opens, and 3 people walk in. Who don't belong to Pine Harbor. 2 suits and Agent Klein, with a badge that flips open like a verdict. Ms. Halpern. She says soft and final. We need you to come with us to answer questions about unauthorized resource use, embezzlement, and witness intimidation. You're not under arrest at this moment. We are serving a federal preservation order. Brenda turns to me with a look I've seen on men in corner offices right before the floor gives way. Hate braided with surprise. You stole my community, she hisses. I keep my voice level so I don't say too much. I bought my land. I tell her you sold theirs. That's where the story lands for me. Not a victory lap, not a party, just a projector, cooling on a folding table and a room full of people realizing the loudest person in charge forgot the rules apply to her too. I drove home past the high beams and the spray paint and made coffee on the steps and let the quiet feel earned instead of borrowed. You can be mad. I fenced my line. You can argue that 20 years of family memories should trump a 19th century sentence and a concrete post older than me. You can say, stewardship makes a dock legal if the boats run on time. Or you can say boundaries are real audits. Matter and community doesn't mean one person gets the keys forever. You know what I mean? Tell me where you land. Is this brave or stubborn justice, or overkill community memory, or property rights? And if you've lived through your own HOA saga, or watched a board turn into a throne, drop it in the comments, push back. Agree. Tell me what I missed. Hit subscribe if you want more receipts than rumors. And if you've got a story like this, I'm listening.